he did say like throughout the hand or at the end, he's like, "Save your money, bro. Save your money." And I was just like,
I think
yeah,
he was
like one of those.
you know, I mean, maybe he was trying to get you off of a chop if he was saying all
Yeah,
that stuff, you know.
20 were 8-handed. But this is kind of weird because the guy next to me, a recreational player, he forgot to straddle this hand.
Okay.
So we called him out on it. He's oh, I'm sorry. He ends up limping for 10, and now I'm under the gun +1. I have 4,700, and it's not the effective stack. I'm sorry, the hero or the villain is the effective stack, but I end up making it 45.
All right,
under gun plus.
So you make it 45 UTG you +1, but it would have been UTG, and this particular hand is only 510, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
and what do you have?
I have Ace of Clubs, Ace of Diamonds.
All right, so that's very unfortunate. You know, I talked a little bit about my podcast last week that there's a lot of luck in poker that people don't see. And what I mean by that, I called it the butterfly effect. Like sometimes when you're in a mixed type of game where some hands are straddled and some hands aren't, or in this particular case, very unfortunate for you, someone forgets, now you pick up a big hand. It's a little bit of negative variance. Of course, if you win the hand, but it's just interesting. Yeah. So that there's a lot of variance in where you pick up these big hands in these mixed size games. But okay, so you make it 45 with aces. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, usually standard 3x, 4x with one limper. I made a little 45 because I think it's kept playing a little big.
Yep.
Middle position. I'm sorry, my phone went blank. Middle position ends up making a flat call. He's gonna be the villain in the hand. He is 2,500 effective.
Okay.
He's a younger player and very, very tight but very, very aggressive in the hands he's played.
Okay.
I've already seen him 4-bet ace jack suited. I've been watching him a lot, all in. So I've already kind of have a little history with him.
Yep.
The big blind calls as well, and the limper calls as well.
So the big blind calls, the limper calls. So it's 4 ways, right?
Yep, 4 ways, 185 in the pot.
Okay. Now people are saying he made it too small. Remember this hand's only 510, so he made it 45 over a limp. I mean, that's what I would maybe make it 50, but that's what I would have done too. It's not 510 20. This particular hand.
Yeah, well, I usually do 3x in position, 3x in the position, and then 1 for every limper. Yeah. And I made it 5 extra just because.
Yep. Okay.
So flop comes King of Hearts, Queen of Hearts, 5 of Spades.
And you have Ace of Clubs, Ace of Diamonds. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So obviously, kind of a wet board.
Yeah.
So big blind checks, undergun checks, and I like to go about 2/3. So I bet 125.
Okay.
The middle position villain, like I said, he pretty much instant raises to what is it? Let's see here. He bets 350.
So he makes it
25 effect.
So he makes it just under 3x.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it was pretty quick. Mm-hmm. Like not even he about it for, not very long. It made 350. The big blind and the under the gun both fold.
Okay.
All right. So
I'm assuming that you call. Is that right?
Yeah.
So the pot's now 885. So let me just think about this a couple of different ways. So, it's interesting because like little details affect the hand, because one of the things that I would say is like your setup of this guy, like you wonder if you ever would flat and under the gun open with like kings or queens, but there's that limper in there. So that would sort of incentivize him to 3-bet those hands as opposed to just call. So I think most of the time we can sort of dismiss that he's ever flat calling you with like a big pair. Obviously king, queen, three combos of king, queen suited, maybe some king, queen off. That sort of strikes me right off the top. And pocket fives. I mean, if he was just playing king, queen suited, you've got 6 thick value combos right now that beat you, right? 3 combos of fives, 3 combos of king, queen.
Yeah, so I'm thinking just because of the way I've seen him play so far and the hands that he's won, I dismiss ace, king, queen, and king automatically from his range. Just because like I've seen him 4-bet. When somebody 3-bet him, he 4-bet shoved for 1,300 with ace jack suited. I've seen some very, very aggressive plays when he's in the hand, even though he's tight. So I automatically discounted like kings, queens,
right. And then just a couple other comments too. You do have a 5x of hearts possibility. Some people in the live chat are saying that it's a little bit large multi-way. while I agree with the live chat in theory, from what I know about Hollywood Park games, and especially with this caller having ace-ace and not blocking any of the pairs out here, when you pop into a typical sort of LA live game when you're playing against a lot of 30 and 40% VPIPs, this is a dream spot to get called by a lot of offsuit broadways. So he blocks like, ace king, but king jack, king 10, I don't have a problem actually with a larger sizing, just because you see a larger reflection of hands that hit this board that should not be played in a certain configuration. All right, so 885, let's move to the turn. Yep.
So 885, the turn is seven of clubs.
Okay.
Doesn't really change anything, and I'm going to play him flow. Obviously, I'm not going to donk lead, so I check into him. He thinks for about 15 seconds and bets 450. Now, this is like the spot where it's kind of weird. For me, there was no river that I'd like to see.
How much did he bet?
I'm not folding. 450. So he left himself like a pot size bet if I was to call.
Okay, so I think you're a little bit deep, like to just say, oh, I'm gonna check jam or fold here, because like you said, he's got about 1800 left. And then of course there are some combo draws here too, like a jack 10 of hearts, jack 9 of hearts. If you don't have the ace of hearts in your hand, so ace jack of hearts, ace 10 of hearts. So I think it's a little bit nitty to just, necessarily give him those hands and fold out now. And this is a situation where, probably what I would do is I would call. And then when you say, well, I don't like a lot of rivers, well, I mean, any low offsuit heart is the best rivers for you, right? Also too, king or a queen are good rivers for you too, right? Cutting down on, like, if a queen comes at the end, that's a really good river for you too. It just cuts down on a shit ton of the combos. So there's a fair amount of good river. And a five is another one. You beat king, queen, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm never folding the turn. I'm just in that spot. I feel like I know what's coming for the most part. I mean, I don't know. I had that feeling that he was just going to go with it that hand.
Well, this is the whole thing. I mean, so you're going to call the turn here, and the pot's going to be 1775, and this is a spot where, I kind of came up with this term called Fifth Street Chicken, which, I really do definitely disagree with what people say, and it's not even theoretically correct when they're like, well, if you call the turn, the river's a brick, and you check and the guy jams and you fold. How can you have to call if you call the turn? And that's just not the case in big bet poker, because the bet in itself, and especially in this case, a jam, is more information about the hand. And I always tell people to look at a game that, maybe a lot of people don't necessarily know it's played at the World Series, but single draw, no limit, deuce to 7, which is deuce to 7, low ball. But it's not a triple draw game. It's just single draw. They play it as a 10K. They play it in the mix. There's so little information about in that game, in the actual game. That's why they call it the Cadillac of no limit. You will commonly see somebody raise with like somewhat of a mediocre to strong hand from the first few positions, like a pat 10 or something like that. Somebody will call in position. The person in position will draw one card. The guy from up front will be pat. They'll pat, then they'll check the river, then the guy in position will bet, and the guy from up front will fold. And the only thing that has changed is the fact that the guy has bet at the end. Now, there's some combos and stuff in your hand that you can look into with that game as well, specific cards in your hand, but there isn't a better example of how you can actually fold at the end when nothing changes about the board. Just the fact that it's a bet again. So 7-7. So you call 1775 to the river. So what's the river now?
The river is the 10 of clubs.
Oh, okay. So that's not like a brick per se, right?
It's not a brick, but it's not a brick. But like two of his main bluffs get there with Jack 9.
Well, that makes a huge difference. I mean, there's a huge difference between the 10 of clubs and the deuce of clubs here, or a 7. Like I said, actually a 7 would have been a really good card for you, because then. A 5 would cut down on pocket 5s, and you actually beat king queen, so a 5's a little bit better, but then maybe you lose to the 5x of hearts. But this isn't necessarily the best card here for you, so I'm assuming you check.
Yeah, I check, and he insta
for how much?
1700. For 1700, as I'll say.
1700. So you're getting about 2 to 1 here.
Yeah.
Right, you're getting about 2 to 1. I mean, I think now with the fact that a couple of more hands come in terms of those draws, and maybe for the propensity, I don't know how good this guy is, but you'll see guys not be able to put it together with Jack 10 of hearts and check this back at the end because they think that have picked up a sliver of showdown value and not turn Jack 10 into a bluff. So when you see this rip and you're like, well, would he do this with Jack 10? Is he good enough to rip it? Now my ace Jack of hearts comes in, the Jack 9 of hearts comes in. You know, I think especially now, like even if it was a total brick, I would be sort of torn whether or not to call or fold. And now when we add in those other things here, then I would probably really lean towards folding now.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, like some of the dynamics as well, I'm like literally that was my second to my, I was going to leave some and my under the gun. So like that was one of my second to last hands. I'm thinking, it's my first time playing 5-10. I don't want to be like the guy that makes the hero call with the one pair there. I thought all of his some of his bluffs get there with ace jack or jack 9. So yeah, all that considered, it took about a minute and a half of thinking, and then I made the fold. But he flipped over. This is the weird part. So he flipped over ace king. So
wow, that's really something. I mean, I had really washed over that in the beginning of the hand too, where there's a possibility, but I kind of would have thought that would have been in the same sort of realm as that should be 3-bet off because of the limper. Because what we said in the very beginning of the call is we sort of dismiss pocket kings and pocket queens because there's a little small bit of detail with the UTG limp. I would have put this hand in that category where that would be 3-bet off because of the limp. So if he's flatting here with ace king, does that mean that he's flatting sometimes with like queens and kings? It's really bizarre at the end. I don't know if he thought that he was trying to get you off the same hand. You know, I don't think he's thinking that he's trying to specifically bluff aces, you know?
I think, but during my tanking, and this is another thing that I think I should have really considered it. Like I think that he knew once at some point that he was beat, so maybe he did turn it into a bluff. I'm not really sure. But he did say like throughout the hand or at the end, he's like, "Save your money, bro. Save your money." And I was just like,
I think he was like I mean, maybe he was trying to get you off of a chop if he was saying all that stuff, you know?
It was just like, but I said like, I totally did not think of those hands because like I said, I've seen him 4-bet shove with ace jack suited. I've seen him all go like shove with, a couple, it's pretty aggressive plays when he's in the hand. Mm-hmm. So I totally discounted kings and queens and ace king. So like with discounting those hands, I'm really facing like 5s or ace jack or jack 9 of hearts or any of those hands that actually got there on the river or a set of 5s. So I just felt like I couldn't call there. I feel like there's way better spots, especially in that game that we were playing. And ended up making the fold, and I guess it was a bad. I mean, if you're saying you would have leaned towards the fold, then I guess it wasn't a bad fold.
I think so. Just the fact that even just the 10 slightly affects the hand a little bit. I mean, some people are saying, well, he would have 3-bet off with ace jack of hearts. I mean, we don't know that if he's flatting here with ace king. So again, I mean, I thought it was really, really close whether or not I would call on a brick. So if you add a hand in here, if you add a card that will actually complete a couple of the draws, it sort of makes me lean, a little bit towards a fold. But I mean, what's funny is that you probably would have played king queen here the same way in terms of up until the river here, right? With top 2. So he's really value owning himself or always sort of putting you on ace king because I don't think are you necessarily coming back over the top with king queen at any point before the river,
Yeah. No, yeah. It was such an interesting hand. I just thought that, like I said, I think that I was leaning. I think if not a 10 comes, like something obviously like a 7 or even an 8, somewhere along those lines, I think I was okay with calling, tanking but calling. But that 10, like it was like okay, even some of his bluffs get there, so I was okay. You know what? I'm just gonna let this one go.
Yep.
I just thought it was weird that I didn't know what he actually. If he thought he was bluffing or he thought he was,
a little bit of button clicking. Maybe he thought he was trying to get you off the same hand. I appreciate the call, Sammy. Thank you very much.